Is my resolution the same as last time or
It,
better?
it actually looks fantastic, I gotta say, and I gotta make sure everyone sees this right now. Oh gosh, you're so zoomed in. Forgive me. Oh no, I don't. This is my first time streaming, Amir. Forgive me. So I know you're in like San Francisco, California, and stuff, though. But
Yeah,
in the studio, do you have
correct.
some bright lights going on or something?
Okay. Yes, I was hoping you would ask about this.
Oh,
So basically, my glasses, they broke
oh
on the.
no!
I was wearing these actually the last time we hung out, and they broke as we were approaching the release of patch 2.
Oh
And
no!
so yeah, I couldn't get new ones in time, so I've been wearing my prescription sunglasses.
So you've been walking around the studio issuing orders like this, Amir?
Well, only in bright parts of the studio. I can't go anywhere dark because I don't know what's happening.
Dear God.
But yeah, no, that's been what I'm up to. Hey, I can't see you
Oh, okay.
on
Let me see.
my
So-
Discord. Let's go. Let's
Let's
just
just
go.
do it, baby. I mean, I'm sure you
I've
got
got your
meetings
voice.
to handle and everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, we just launched a patch, so there's and 2 additional versions of the game, which is very exciting. But yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
I would imagine so. Well, I guess if you don't mind, just in case anyone's not aware, do you mind a quick intro for yourself?
Yes. So I'm Amir Rao. I'm the co-founder and studio director of Supergiant Games. At Supergiant, I basically coordinate the work we do together, and I work on game design. So my work is, largely in the tuning and things like that of the powers and figuring out what designs we're going to pursue. Another thing I did and do at our studio is kind of help us turn player feedback into action here. And so I'm kind of, those are some of the areas I'm a part of at the studio. And I've been, here for all 16 years of our existence, working with the same group of people who worked on the original game from our studio, Bastion, and original Hades. All of us are still working together.
I know it's actually amazing. The group has like stayed together this much for so long, right? But also,
Yes.
I gotta say, so you said that you handle a lot of the tuning and everything like that, and player feedback. So if you didn't listen to one of my feedbacks, I can take it to you. If I gave you some great ideas.
Yeah, I think that's healthy. I think if
Healthy relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was something in that realm, I didn't tune everything in Hades 2, but certainly it may have been my fault if you didn't like it.
Okay, so I got a soft opener for here. So first of all, congratulations, highest rated game of 2025. That's got to feel
Thank
good,
you.
right? I mean, that's got to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And not to mention, there were some really big contenders last year with Hades too. So I guess I'd just like to ask, do you have like a favorite game outside of the games that you've developed yourself from 2025 maybe that you'd like to point out?
2025.
Yeah, we'll say so.
Yeah. I mean, it was insane to be nominated alongside so many incredible games. And I have to say, one of the games I actually really enjoyed, and just I've had an opportunity because we got to go to those shows to meet some of the teams who worked on that stuff, and their work is super inspiring, and it's awesome. It's awesome to be to just kind of be in the conversation about really great games from 2025. One of my favorite games that we were nominated alongside actually was in some of the shows was Ball X Pit.
Oh yeah.
Yes, are you a Ball X Pit player?
I did. I played quite a bit, and
Yes.
they had some great unique twists. I mean, it's in the same roguelike wheelhouse. It's
Yeah.
one of those games it kind of takes you by surprise. It's like a budget game, that they're not asking for a lot of money from you, and it just turns out there's just so much to do, and I don't know, it's just a well polished game, 100%.
Yeah, and it was just felt like there was always another thing. It was like, oh, there's another thing. There's another thing. I love that feeling in games, and the things sometimes were really big and sometimes really strange, and that was one of the ones I really enjoyed from last year that's come into my head. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a ton of games I enjoyed. There's a ton of games I enjoyed last year.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we'll move on from the other games. Let's get back to the business, so the Hades 2. So how are you feeling about the update, basically, right now?
Good right now, yeah. So there's two big things happening, right? Which is the first is that Xbox and PlayStation players are getting Hades 2 for the first time. So that's very exciting to us. We have so many fans of all of our games. You know, Bastion originally came out on Xbox Live Arcade on the Xbox, and of course Transistor and PYRE and a number of our games in Bastion eventually all, you know, original Hades came out on PlayStation. So it's just, it feels like a sense of completeness now for us to finally be on all the consoles and you know, and on Game Pass and all that stuff, so a lot of people can play it. So that's one big thing that's happening. And the second, of course, is Patch 2. Patch 2 is also happening. Patch 2 for all people. Yeah, so, you know, this is a nerve-wracking time for us because, like, our game development studio turns into like a customer support organization where we try to make sure that everything is like working well for everyone. And, you know, did we miss a spot? Was there something that we need to consider differently? Is our intention coming across in the changes we made? And, you know, what are people saying in all the places that people talk about, you know, Hades?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, the edition that we have here, the main edition, I'd say, besides the consoles and everything, the dream diving, I can tell, like, you're having to do a lot of, like, technical stuff on the side. I mean, you DM'd me personally to say, like, I can see you're struggling, try this, and that might fix it. And then at the end of the day, it was my fault, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's really nice of you to see that really hands-on approach and just trying to make sure everyone's having, you know, the intended experience from the patch.
Yeah, and I only knew that solution worked because there's a number of people who came into our Discord who were running certain mods and they were having trouble, and, you know, they were able to take some of the feedback from our team and fix their games. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, the modders are there've been so many interesting and cool mods for Hades 2, and, you know, many of them have a lot of downloads, and so it's pretty easy for something to go wrong, obviously, when the game just updates across all platforms, and so I'm sure all that stuff is getting into a place of better stability over time and will. And of course, yeah, sorry to anyone who had issues, who had mods installed or is still having issues with it. I'm sure we'll get back to the status quo on mods and everything else over time.
True. So I'm curious, where did the idea of using Hypnos for this new game mode come from exactly? Because I had a thought last night, which is that you easily could have just tied this in as a chaos trial. It seems very fitting to just have one more chaos trial. Thus, you don't have to go through all this work of adding, you know, the Hypnos dialogue and things of that nature. So I'm just really curious, where did this idea spawn from exactly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So patch number 2, I'll take one step back. Where did patch number 2 spawn from?
Yeah, good.
So basically, you know, for patch number 2, we knew we had a bunch of technical work to do on the Xbox and PlayStation versions of the game. And so it gave our sort of people who work on game content a little window to try and do something kind of in gratitude to our players and to address some of the quality of life stuff we still saw being sort of opportunities for the game, and kind of investigate some of the balance stuff that we saw people still talking about after the version 1.0 launch. And so we just kind of packaged up all these things that we were interested in trying. And, you know, Dream Dives actually was something that we were, you know, during conversation when we were like, oh, what could we do with this kind of mixed region run? It just made sense as a kind of avenue for tying into Hypnos. And, you know, it's one of those things where the combination of what we were trying to achieve in the gameplay and, you know, just the opportunity, it all kind of came together in a way that felt natural, and felt doable in the amount of time we wanted to work on something and stuff like that. And so we were like, oh, well, let's just try it and see how it feels. And yeah, we stood it up. It took some time actually to stand up. They're technically a little bit more complicated, and to figure out exactly how we wanted it to work and how we wanted to couch it and all this kind of stuff. And we just ran our process on it and got to where we got with it.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thinking this, but I just so love seeing Hypnos again in a greater capacity. Just getting to hear him speak again and interact with him was just a great experience on its own. So I absolutely love that you managed to tie him into it, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. I think that part of it is really exciting to see people's reactions to it. You never know, right? With any of this stuff, it's all hard to predict. And so it was just, yeah, people are being very, we're just really happy with what we're seeing in the first day.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So around balance, I wanted to bring up Ares a little bit, because you did talk about how it's something, this is part of your workload potentially day by day. And I think it's, I love the changes, first of all, that you've made to Ares and seeing these extra synergies around sword drops and stuff like that. But I guess I'm curious from your standpoint, I think a lot of people would say the long-term players, the hardcore players, stuff like that, they would call Ares the weakest god. I'm using air quotes right now. How do you feel about that? And did you really think he heavily needed that attention based on pick rates, or was this more of a player feedback thing?
Well, so the player feedback caused us to investigate the data more, basically, is how I describe it. So we've obviously heard this and we've looked at it several times, and Ares has some big standout stars in his kit, and so that perform well and that are picked a lot. And so this is one of those things where the thread of Ares feedback didn't start at 1.0, right? There's people who during early access had thoughts on what was there. And I think honestly, patch 2, so it's not like we were just hearing about it for the first time when we started patch 2. It's been in the background of our minds of like, well, what is this, and what if anything do we want to do about it? Honestly, the start of patch 2 was just like an opportunity to reset our brains and look at it again. I've had this Alice, one of our technical designers who works on the boons and makes them all. She has thought about the Ares feedback a lot, and so it's one of those things where sometimes to players the answers feel really clear and the solutions seem really simple, but we just needed to kind of think about it a while and then kind of reset on patch 2, and like when we were picking Ares stuff and looking at Ares stuff, we were like, oh yeah, we could do something with this.
Nice.
That was a little stronger, or felt like it was pulling together parts of his kit a little bit more and parts of the things he brings to the table. So it was like, the way things happen at Supergiant on the design side when we're trying to address feedback is like, we have our players' experience that we hear about in a variety of ways. We have the data, which we use to see, investigate kind of broader pick and performance. And then we have our own experience, which tends to, weigh heavily also.
So
it's when those things line up, then suddenly something happens,
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we try something here? And so that was something that was kind of interesting. We were able to kind of, do some stuff with it. I think you'll we were quite cautious, I think. So there's, once a game is 1.0, we have certain things, you brought up last time about like, oh, you would rename boons and you would do all this stuff, and it's, I feel like some of those things after 1.0 you don't really want to do. People are used to the game and they want a level of stability with it and stuff. So so we try to just figure out what stuff that keeps the theme, that keeps tying these pieces together and feels right, and we hope we've answered it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's actually a really good point, because I was discussing this yesterday, that seeing this balance patch, it all makes sense. It's not too heavy-handed, and I'm sure, like you said, stability is a big point after a game is out. So nerfing the strongest things in the game, again, using air quotes here, would probably be a general mistake, I would imagine. So this leads me well into my next question is, do you have some kind of like, I don't know, I guess philosophy or like creed you live by when it comes to the balance of really any game that you've had?
Yeah, I can speak to the Hades games and our previous games, actually. So I can speak to all the games.
Okay.
So Hades specifically, we want compelling choices.
Okay.
And compelling choices for us is stuff that you know, the slate of compelling choice is stuff that is sometimes situational and feels really good when you kind of like have solved the puzzle and you pick it at the right time. Stuff that's like kind of evergreen and always compelling in an Olympian's set of things where you're just like, oh yeah, I really want that. Stuff you seek actively if you're using certain aspects or you're trying for something. Just kind of like the sense that there are real decisions to make and that they're hard to make without necessarily being paralyzing, right? And there's something to them, and there's something expressive about them. I think those, you know, we like interesting decisions for that kind of thing, and that, you know, it rewards player knowledge and investment over time. Like a player. So I was thinking about this the other day, like with your videos. So if you're a player, right, there's like 3 components to you getting a lot better at Hades. There's your own skill, which is really hard to rapidly level up. Like you just kind of have to do your reps. There is the sort of meta progression. So how much stuff have you unlocked and what kinds of decisions are you making? And have you found the stuff that really works for you? And then there's like the knowledge piece. Yeah. And, you know, a Haelian video has the potential to supercharge your knowledge and your learning. And actually, as a game developer, when we play our own games, one of the hardest things to do is to like play it as if we know nothing about it. Yeah. But that's how first-time players play it. And players over time, they create, you know, you're tapped in, I think, to, you reference it, like the player conversation, the meta around it, some sort of public conversation around it. But even players themselves, they have their own kind of evolved meta from what's working for them and the weapons they like and all this kind of stuff. And that's just... you know, a thing that can happen over time, a thing you can sort of start to build on by watching a video, and you can supercharge your knowledge in roguelikes, which is kind of cool. Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I've always said that more than people think, the Hades games are a massive knowledge check. You know, a lot of people think about, I just got to like, you know, perfectly dash at the right time to avoid this damage or something, and that's how I'm going to get better at the game. But there is so much to learn in the games. It's really not, you know, just a pure hand-eye coordination thing. You just gotta know and start to figure out trial and error things and find out what works and what doesn't a lot of times.
Yeah, I think, you know, Greg has said this in other interviews too. It's like the sense of discovery is like what's so great in roguelikes. It's like you need the challenge and stuff like that kind of in order to enable and unlock this feeling, which is like the sense of variety, the sense of discovery. I think in the roguelikes we love and that were inspiring to us, you know, like I was actually playing last year, I was playing a lot of Monster Train 2.
Oh, sick, yeah.
Yeah, and that game, it's like I just felt like in every win or a loss, I just tried and learned something different. And I think, you know, when roguelikes do that, I think it's just it's magical.
100%. I mean, it's really about variety, and I mean, you added that in this update 100% too. It's just giving a large variety of modes and everything like that, and it's really near impossible to combine every single thing experience every single different iteration in the Hades games, right? Because you just got 24 different aspects, and then you got, you know, dozens of different boons just from the cores and stuff like that. So it's really hard to really see the duplicates, you know, even after thousands of hours already for myself.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the things I was most excited about in the 1.0 update actually was the new keepsakes stuff, all the like the Fate's Whim stuff, because I think just thinking about your journey into a roguelike, right? There's this like experience you have when you just start to get it and you're starting to piece these things together. And I think in we want in the Hades games, and I think many designers do in their roguelikes, that sort of magical feeling of like the puzzle is, you're starting to see how it's all supposed to fit together for you, like the stuff that works for you and the stuff that is going to perform well for you. And with the new keepsakes, so that happens, right? And then there's this kind of like solved puzzle moment for people who get really into the game, where they kind of just have a sense, whether it's completely backed by data or not, that like there is just, with this aspect you want these hammers and these boons and this thing, and this is all you need. And what's kind of sad about that moment is your knowledge like matters a little less. It matters a lot in the sense you need to know those things, but now it's automatic, right? It's like why it's why you make boon choices so fast, right? And why you make rerolls so fast when you play. And so almost being able to kind of go back to a state where the randomness was exciting instead of frustrating for you, and your knowledge actually now matters even more because you're starting to make these choices in different ways. And so I don't know, that little curve was really exciting to me, the possibility that it could work, that there could be an alternative play style at the sort of top end for this kind of stuff. And so I was really excited to see that come together, and to see that some of these keepsakes are some of people's favorites to use and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my god, it was an amazing addition. It really breathed life in the game for me in particular, someone who cycles through the game, even if it's just a couple runs a day. It, like you said, it made things more exciting, instead of just being like, I'm going to get XYZ, I'm going to start this run, here's what I'm going to get, here's what's going to happen, the answers before the questions even really come up. This really kind of created problems in the runs themselves and made choices more difficult, because an easy choice is not usually a fun choice, like you've kind of been talking about here, and I think that was honestly, it's certainly not something I saw coming at all, that you would manage to find keepsake or anything like this that would make taking away the reroll so interesting, but you managed to do it, is what I'm trying to say. All right, I got another question, but this one's a bit tougher, but I'm going to leave it open-ended for you here, so you're welcome to just shut me down if you so chose. But I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about the ending, at least the original one. So just what happened, I guess.
I mean, so basically at version 1.0 we added the true ending to the game, and we started to see some feedback from players and from some players, especially players who were like really invested in the early access and had been playing the game for a long time, just about the ending, about their experience with it, and how it was landing for them. And we cared about the early access feedback throughout development, right? It's the only way we got Hades 2 to the place it got. And so we didn't just stop caring, at version 1.0, we still cared. And so, once we started seeing that feedback, we just kind of ran our early access process on the feedback again, right? We looked at what people were saying. We asked ourselves, what could we do about it, and how could we address it? And we talked through some different solutions, and within a few days after the version 1.0 launch, we had kind of like a plan for how we wanted to tackle it, and we just tried it. We wanted to try, and so it ended up being just kind of an extension of our early access process. We got some feedback on the game, and we wanted to make it better for those players. And a kind of guiding thought for us, as simple as it sounded through our early access, is whenever we made a change, we wanted to make it kind of better for people who were having trouble with it, and make people who liked it already like it even more, if we could. That wasn't always possible with every part of the game and with every change, but if a change could achieve that, we wanted to do it. And so we thought we could do that with aspects of the original ending we shipped, and so we tried.
Gotcha. I mean, it makes sense. And you turned it around really quick. Like, it was like 4 weeks or something, Amir, right? So I'm sure you guys were really working overtime to make sure like you got this out there as soon as possible with all the different additions, because it just felt like, you really had to put in a lot of work in such a short period of time to really change it up that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's correct that we took a tremendous amount of focus, and a small group of us who were responsible for working on those changes focused on it. It ended up pulling in almost everyone at some point, to test it, to try it, to give their feedback, to actually work on it. But yeah, it was like, I think the thing with Supergiant, we have such an iterative process, and we had such an iterative process even before we did early access, where we try stuff, we try to make it better based on our experience with it, or what we're being told about it, and so just when we have a process like that, we just have to try. Yeah. We just have to see if we can do it, and so we ended up quite focused on delivering that update. And so, yeah, we just hunker down. And part of, if you have an iterative process, a thing that really helps is the ability to go fast when you know what you're doing. And I think that's sort of like a superpower of us on almost every level. It's, if I were going to say there's several things I'm really proud of about the team. And one of them is this, which is once we know what we're doing, it comes together quite quickly, and the iterations start happening quite naturally, and it gets to something that we're excited to put out.
100%. Yeah, I mean, the creative process, just coming up with ideas and brainstorming what to do now, it can be a real deadlock, I can imagine, where because you just got to start shooting shots and just see which one manages to stick to a wall or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's a lot of times it's really, I've talked about this before, it's really problem solving oriented, which works quite well with an early access game, but actually served us all the way back to Bastion. So for Bastion, we were really interested in making an isometric combat game that didn't have a map. And so that ended up being the thing that informed the whole world design of Bastion, the part where the world is destroyed and the world starts coming up as you move. It was one of the first things we prototyped in the game. I think there's like an old YouTube video where you can see what that looked like. And for us, it was like, oh, wherever the world isn't, you walk towards it, the world appears there, and that's how you know where to go next. And now you don't need a map. It was problem solving for us because in so many isometric games, you play with a map up either all the time, or in the case of something like Diablo 2, it's like overlaid on top of the action all the time. So, and as you know, I'm a big fan of that game, but of course we were trying to sort of solve a design problem. So, what's really great about a problem solving approach is you can look at what other people have done. You can ask yourself, is there some particularly theme appropriate, world appropriate, game appropriate, or novel way we could solve it? There's lots of problem solving approaches here, and different people here think differently about those problems, and we just come to something that works between us. We just have a high amount of trust and the chemistry of working on stuff for a long time that makes that possible.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating that the whole concept of a game really originated from this one concept, an action RPG with no map. Do you have a similar tagline to how Hades came to creation, or Hades 2 even, just if blah 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 was blah 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 kind of thing?
Yeah, Hades is interesting because I think for Hades it was more we saw an opportunity to do some of the stuff we felt like we had learned to do well over time with narrative and atmosphere and a sense of persistence and stuff inside the roguelike genre. We were inspired by so many amazing roguelike games, but also felt like maybe we had something to add and contribute here.
100%.
And with Hades, we had never done an early access game before, so we were really interested in trying that too, and kind of getting to something quick and building it in partnership with our community. And honestly, we couldn't have tried any of that without the things we learned from making PYRE, which had a more dynamic narrative where we weren't always sure exactly or we couldn't, it wasn't like a linear story like our games that came before it. So we couldn't, we had to just basically react to the player's situation. And we learned so much from doing that. We thought, well, could we parlay that into the dynamism that's going to happen anyway in a roguelike, where, some people will fly through it, some people will fail a lot, everyone will have their own kind of path through it. And could we make a highly, could we do something in our perspective and our voice in that space?
I had never really considered that before. I mean, having played all the games several times through, I never really considered the fact that that does make sense. that you mash Bastion with PYRE into a roguelike kind of thing. But it makes perfect sense now because, like you said, PYRE, it's not, just it's not an A to B story or anything. Everyone could experience a completely different story there. So, I mean, I love these little in-depths into the studio, Amir, but I have a very particular question, perhaps, akin to that Simpsons scene where, the wizard's key or whatever. What's the deal with the door in Circe's room that you can kind of interact with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're lucky to be on her island. So if your expectation is to go into her house, I don't know. It just doesn't sound, it just doesn't feel like it's an in-character thing. But I have Greg sitting right here to my right.
Greg?
I can ask Greg. So what's the question exactly? I could try and pose it his way.
You can kind of interact with Circe's door to like her house, and Circe will say something, but that's kind of it.
Oh, yeah. Is that a question? You just said a sentence.
Look, Amir, quit splitting hairs. Oh, well, okay. Here's the bigger thing. Was there ever a plan to make use of that or anything, or was it always just flavor?
So why won't Circe let you in? Was there ever a plan to do something different with it? I think is the question that Haelian has.
There was, I mean, how much? It's just all the dead bodies, It just.
I don't know if you could hear that, but that's the canonical answer.
He just said it's all the dead bodies, right? It makes sense.
Yeah, it would be quite unseemly. That was Greg's answer.
I knew Circe had something up. All those perchances that she always says and everything. There's a dark side to her out there. I knew it all along, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got the answer straight from Greg. What can I say more than that?
Okay, I gotta ask this one, and I'm sure it's something that has come up a lot, like forever and always, from fans, from audiences, from other interviews, whatever. Did you ever consider, or will you ever consider, or anything to do with co-op in the Hades games? Any of them, previous ones, current ones, new Hades games, whatever.
Oh, I mean, I can just talk about Hades and Hades 2. For us, we always thought of them as single player experiences.
Okay.
We focused on making a good single player experience, and that was, as a small team, we have to focus, and that was entirely our aim. We wanted to tell the story of these characters, and we wanted to focus on that kind of game. And a lot of us play a lot of amazing atmospheric, narrative, high variety, high dynamic range single player games, and so that's the stuff we're inspired by and into.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like you said, Hades was sort of a creation trying to have a roguelike with a strong narrative, right? Kind of thing. So it makes sense to kind of, like you said, focus on that and keep the team focused on it. Because as soon as you add like a second player to it, it's like an exponent, really, in complexity, and I would agree. So, speaking of which, I guess, every project you've done so far, I think it was safe to say has been more ambitious than the previous. I mean, by quite a lot, too. I think going from PYRE to Hades and Hades to Hades 2. Did you ever have any plans to maybe taking a break between the more ambitious projects to create a smaller project? Is that something that could still happen in the future or anything like that, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the question, stepping back, I think the question that's interesting here is sort of like, how do we do this? Like, how do we decide what to make? Because, the straightforward answer here is, every game we make is in some way informed by the one we made right before it.
Yeah.
And so, we're always interested. We always have these questions that kind of inform how we go about the process of making the next one. And, I think for something like Hades coming from PYRE, for example, we knew that we were interested in making an early access game before we knew we were going to make a Greek mythology roguelike.
I see.
It's we have some of these almost like priorities and preoccupations and things we're excited to do that we then, figure out what the right game is as part of that process. And so, we've talked about this before. That's part of why we don't know, as we're working on a game, exactly what the next thing is, because we need to know how we feel about it, and we need to know what we've learned from it, and we need to take all of that and see where people are at as part of figuring out what's next for us. And so, yeah, that's a way of answering the question, just in terms of like, with everything informed by the thing that came before it, our experience in making that game and what we learned from it is basically what helps figure out what's next. And then you take that and you multiply it by, all the people involved, and where are the overlaps in how they're feeling, and where is the overlapping excitement for certain ideas, and stuff starts to come together.
So what I'm hearing is that the next game, whether it's Hades or whatever, we're going to experience 12 zones, 22 gods, probably, 64 different voice actors and all that stuff. Because I'm seeing the growth here, Amir. It doesn't seem like it's slowing down at any point.
What's interesting? I think that, you use the word ambition. Raw ambition for us is not usually the starting point of anything we do. So I find that observation to be kind of interesting. In some ways I felt like PYRE was one of our most ambitious games, because it was trying to do so much stuff we ourselves had not done before. And there's like a unique song that's created based on your playthrough at the end of the game, based on the choices that you make and stuff like that. There's like all these permutations of the ending, and you can lose every right, and the game still moves forward, and all this kind of stuff. So I found that kind of an interesting observation, because in our experience of making it, it's like it just shows that sort of not what it's like to make it, and then what it might feel like on the other side for players is kind of not necessarily always matched up, but so, that's quite interesting.
So would you say that you guys at the studios, you don't necessarily feel like you're being ambitious enough? Like, do you ever find that to be like a driving force, like we need to take more risks or chances or anything like that?
I don't think that raw ambition is like much of a motivating factor in most of our decisions, just because it's actually the opposite. We're a smaller team, or we either were or are, depending on what you consider a smaller team. And so we're really constrained on purpose by making things that this team can make, and this team can make sustainably. And so that limitation is at the forefront of our mind whenever we think about stuff. And there are teams much bigger than ours that can do things much bigger than ours, and that's awesome. I love that those games exist, and they're some of my favorite experiences. And for us, we have to do something kind of right sized for us.
I see. Well, in case there was any doubt from you or anyone in the team, I feel like every title you have made is ambitious, Amir, and you've always exceeded expectations in my mind. So just to be a fanboy for just the briefest moment there, at least. So,
well, thank you.
I guess, simple question, and I know, you can't answer like everything to the degree that people might want, but do you think Hades 2 is done?
Yeah. So, we are really a one thing at a time team. And so we're really right now focused on this launch and how this is going. So we're looking at what's happening on the consoles, and what's happening with the patch on all the places it is, and what's the feedback, and what's the data, and what are the bugs coming in, all that kind of stuff. So right now our head is totally there. And if there's a problem to fix it. You observed, for example, I think in yesterday's stream, that some of the audio is not correctly routed to every slider, and so we're looking at that as an example. So there's small things like that, and so that's kind of where our head is at. We don't have like a there's right now there's nothing planned beyond what we're working on right now, and so.
Gotcha.
That's where that's at. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it does make sense. You got to see how this. I mean, it's the day after, so it's. I'll admit it's a bit unfair to ask what the hell you up to next, right? I did see a little leak from Noclip themselves, the documentary makers. They responded to a YouTube comment about a request for a Hades 2 documentary, and they said coming soon or something along those lines. Any comment on that?
I refer you to noclip. In all noclip related questions, I refer to noclip themselves. Yeah, I didn't see anything. I didn't see what you're talking about, so I'm not sure what it is. But it's yeah, I refer you to anything noclip related to noclip. I'm sure.
Gotcha. I'll sign the NDA later or something so we can talk about it.
So it's worth asking though.
All right, just a couple more real quick. And this one's kind of a specific one that someone asked my chat. Any consideration on, I know like we're talking about iterating the game here, but the missing health bar in Typhon, even, at the end game when you have no more unlocks, was there any consideration to, maybe give us an incantation that lets that come back? Or did you just decide it's more fun this way? I guess, what was the decision there?
Yeah, no, I mean, so the Typhon experience is the experience we wanted. And so I know that request was, I've seen that request before.
Yeah.
It was in our official Discord feedback when we first released the Warsong update and stuff like that. So that's definitely something I've seen. It's just I think it's just part of our intention, and the joy and the uniqueness of that fight is that there are 7 other fights with health bars. And so, it's some of these things where for us, it's part of the texture of the game. And maybe this is the part where we've fought him many, many times. So for us, where we are in the fight is really clear. And I think for players who play a lot, where they are in the fight is pretty clear. Like, they're mostly right. And so, for us, it's just part of the experience, and, part of the knowledge check we were talking about before, and just part of the atmosphere of that fight. So the idea of kind of, both from a fiction standpoint and a gameplay standpoint, the idea of just kind of, I don't know, doing an incantation or something that wasn't something we wanted to do.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up, because thinking about it now, the more I played the game, the more obvious it is, okay, we're at this part of the fight, now we're at this part of the fight, because it's broken up into different segments or phases, pretty naturally. And so once you play enough, it's kind of just another knowledge piece that you can gain the more you play, and it makes you feel like, you know something more than just if there was a health bar, I think, and kind of, I don't know, adds something special to it, I do think.
Yeah, there's other things too about it that made us want to keep it that way, but these things become part of the texture of it.
Yeah.
And that just becomes part of its identity, I guess.
All right. Well, last question really is just, what's next? Not like necessarily projects, but is there anything you want to plug or discuss? Do you have any open positions at the studio you want to talk about?
That's a great question. Yeah, no, I mean, we're all really focused right now on the reaction to patch 2, and it's too early to say what's next for us, but I think in the more cosmic existential sense beyond patch 2. But yeah, we're just really, if I have something to plug, it's this. It is that we are blown away, remain super just grateful for the love that Hades and Hades 2 have, and for the support of our team over 16 years of being together and allowing all the players who allow us to do this work together. We feel very fortunate to be able to do this work, and we feel even more just grateful that it resonates with so many people, and that it lands for them, and so it's one of those things where last time I came on, partly because I wanted to say thank you to you and the community. That's no different than now. It's still, people say stuff that's so motivating. I take little clips of it from our Discord. I sometimes take it honestly from your chat. Someone will say something. Amir. Someone will say something delightful. I'll snip it with the Windows tool. And I look at that stuff sometimes, it's just really motivating. So yeah, I mean, we just, thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Amir. Thank you for making an amazing game, for being an amazing studio, and for, listening to the players, and just, really creating something, out of player feedback, like we can all see that you really, really listened to what people had to say, and while also maintaining your original vision for what you had and surprising us too, I think is always a massive part of it.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to try and capture some of the surprise and delight of the original game, which meant having to change things up, and trying different things with it. And it's always great to hear from our players about how we're doing in that regard. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming, Amir. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you again. Hope we can talk again soon. We'll just hit me up. I'm available anytime, any day.
Well, I think you DM'd me this time, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, close enough. Yeah. I mean, whenever there's an excuse for me to DM you, I'm usually just like, so you want to talk?
Yeah. I said yes this time. You never know what's going to happen. All right.
Hey, awesome. Have a great week. Give our best to the team, okay?
Will do. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Aw, that was great, wasn't it? I didn't even say Amir.